Welcome to Evo India and welcome to our review of the Kia Carens. Now this is Kia's fourth car for India.
Is this your opening?
Yeah, bro.
Why? Why are you doing it from the third row?
Bro, everyone says third row, so I said I'll start from the third row only, no?
What rubbish start normally, yeah?
Outside.
Yeah.
Welcome to Evo India and welcome to our review of the Kia Carens. Now we'll get to the third row, don't worry about that. But before that, we have a lot more to talk about. The Carens, it is Kia's fourth car in India. It's essentially a 7-seater that sits somewhere between an MPV and an SUV. Its rivals, well, the most obvious rival is the Hyundai Alcazar, but lower variants will go up against the Maruti Suzuki XL6 and higher variants will challenge the Tata Safari and the Mahindra XUV 700. Stick around because in this video we're going to be telling you everything you need to know about the Kia Carens. We're going to be talking about exteriors, interiors, the features, the second row, yes, the third row, and we're going to be telling you what it's like to drive. But before we go ahead, make sure you like this video, drop a comment down below. What do you think of the Kia Carens? And well, subscribe because we are going to be doing a comparison test with the Carens and its rivals in the future, and you do not want to miss that. So subscribe to the Evo India channel, hit the bell icon. Done that? Now let's go drive this car. Let's start with the exteriors, and on the face of it, the Carens is a very distinct looking car. The Alcazar, it looks like a stretched Creta, but this doesn't look like a stretched Seltos. It looks like its own thing. In fact, it almost looks like an EV because here, this is completely solid. The grille is down here and all the cooling is happening from here. This, solid. It's a very minimalist design. You've got these sleek looking headlamps up front. I really like how the DRLs are styled. You've got the headlamps below that and the fog lamps are down in the bumpers. There's obviously a lot of chrome. Have you seen how much chrome they've put on the Hilux for India? We Indians love our chrome, and the Carens, it gets a lot of chrome too. So you've got a chrome strip here between the headlamps and you've got a chrome surround at the bottom over here as well. I think it's a neat looking car, it's a handsome looking car, and it looks very different from anything on our roads, and that should do it well. Now, it also has a lot of SUV design cues. So you've got this raised bonnet up front, but you've also got a lot of black cladding. See, that black cladding over there runs around the whole car, and that's a very SUV design element. You've also got those roof rails over there, and that's why it's difficult to place this Carens into any one segment. There's the MPV segment, there's the SUV segment, and this sits somewhere in the middle over there. The lines are blurred these days, but this is a 7-seater and it is a large, imposing 7-seater. Not as large or imposing as a Safari or XUV, but it is a big car. When you look at it from the side, well, there's not too many design elements on the side. There's one crease line coming from the bonnet all the way back, one crease line from the tail lamp coming towards the front. But apart from that, it's a pretty neat and clean design. There's chrome, of course. You've got chrome on the window surrounds and you've got chrome on the door handles. As for the wheels, you've got 16-inch wheels even on the top variant. Now, I know you're going to say that it looks under-tired and it should have had 17s, but I'll tell you what, those wheels, they do wonders for the ride quality, but we get to that when we're driving the car. Another thing I wanted to talk about when you're looking at the car from the side is the fact that it has a really long wheelbase. When the Carens was unveiled, I assumed it would be the same wheelbase as the Alcazar, but it's not. It's actually 20 mm more, and that makes its wheelbase longer than the Alcazar, longer than the Safari, longer than the XUV 700. So this does have a really long wheelbase, and we all know what long wheelbase means. It means there's more space on the inside of the car. Now, moving to the rear, there are some really cool design elements here as well. I like how the tail lamps are shaped. They've got a reflector bar that runs between them in the center, and of course you've got badging at the back. You've got the Kia badge, you've got the Carens name, and you've got the, well, on this variant, the 7DCT. Below that, more chrome. So you've got the black cladding and you've got a chrome surround all over it, and I think it's a good looking car even from the rear. The spoiler too, very cool. Now let's talk about the interiors of the Carens. Up front, you've got a digital instrument cluster. This is very similar to what you get in the Creta, but Kia's put its own spin on it. Over here, you've got your infotainment screen. Now this is a 10.25-inch unit and it's nicely integrated into the dashboard. It's completely flush with the dash. Looks very cool, very minimalist again. The touch sensitivity is really good. Really impressed by that. And you get obviously all of the connected car features that come with the car, and you get Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. But it's worth noting that you don't get wireless Android Auto and CarPlay, it is wired still. Below that, you've got your aircon controls. Now, you've got nice physical buttons for your fan speed and your temperature controls. But below that, you've got these really neat looking touch controls for the aircon. And all of it looks very well put together, very minimal. Down here, you've got buttons for drive modes, for hill descent control, and for your ventilated seats. On the left over here, you've got your parking camera, parking sensors, and again, ventilated seats for the passenger seat. Between that, you've got your USB chargers, you've got a Type A and a Type C, so you can be versatile with your chargers. And below that, you've got a wireless phone charger. So if your phone does accept wireless phone charging, you can charge it from here. Now this is the automatic, this is the 7-speed DCT turbo-petrol variant, and therefore you get this automatic transmission, but it is available with a manual as well. Behind that, storage areas, you've got a tray over here which comes out, you've got deep storage pockets over here, and you've got cup holders over here. In addition to this, the Carens has a lot of neat little touches going on around its cabin. You've got a little tray here. I guess you can put coins in here or small knickknacks so that you don't forget them and they're within reach all the time. You've got a neat little cup holder here. Reminds me of Porsches. Put that back in, and you've got a little tray in the armrest. Again, I think you can put some coins in there. I don't suggest you put your wallet in there because it may fall out when you open the door. But yes, neatly laid out cabin, very well put together. Another cool touch, this steering wheel, I don't know what it looks like in the camera, whether it looks black, but it's actually a navy blue and it's paired with beige interior. So the interior scheme is navy blue and beige on this top end trim. Other trims get different colors. In addition to that, quality, fit and finish feels pretty good. The dashboard area is very well put together. All of the buttons feel nice and expensive. Your steering wheel is leather wrapped, and in the door you've got soft touch leather inlays in this part of the door, but the rest of it is actually hard touch. But when you look at it, it all looks very nice and expensive. Now let's talk about the second row of the Kia Carens. This is obviously the 6-seater. It has 2 captain seats in the middle row instead of a bench. The bench would seat 3 and then make this a 7-seater. But speaking about the captain seats, I think they're very comfortable. You've got this nice armrest over here. The seats themselves, they're plush. You sink into them really nicely. They've got a good amount of support on the sides, even on the shoulders. And they're very nice to sit in. I think this is going to be one of the big USPs of the Kia Carens, these captain seats. But worth noting that the captain seats are only available on the top end trim. Other things you need to know about the Kia Carens' second row. No panoramic sunroof, so you've got solid roof on top over here, and that's because it has roof-mounted AC vents. The AC controls are actually down here, so you can turn it on and off from here. You can shut the vents, obviously. You can also adjust the flow from the top. But I think it's a good thing because the vents blow air straight in your face and you cool down much faster in the summers. But something that's not so nice about them is how they feel. And every time you adjust them, this whole roofliner shakes, which is not very nice. It doesn't give you a feeling of robustness and solidity. You've got this air purifier over here. Now the Seltos, the Creta, they all get it in the center armrest. And honestly, I think that's a better place for it. Couple of reasons why. Firstly, it eats into your knee room. Right now, I'm sitting all the way back, so I've got enough room. But should I move this forward to make room for people at the back? It really eats into knee room. Without this here, I'd still have a couple of inches of space. But with this, my knees are brushing up against it. When we drove the Alcazar, we critiqued the Alcazar in a similar manner. We said that the tray tables in the Alcazar do the same thing. This is wider than those tray tables and it really eats into room. Another thing that I don't like about it is it's really loud, and when you're driving, it's right behind the driver's head, so you can really hear it when you're driving along. On the left-hand side seat, you have a tray table. So this is exactly like you would get in the Alcazar, but in the Carens, you've got a tray table on the left and the air purifier on the right. Nice deep door pockets. You've got little pockets over here, and you've got USB-C type ports at the bottom over here to charge your phones. The floor is very flat, so I'm guessing in the 7-seater variant, you will actually have a comfortable 7-seater. Another thing to note about the Carens' interiors is that it doesn't get that center console that the Alcazar gets. The Alcazar gets a neat little console over here with wireless phone charging, with storage. In this car, you've got nothing. You've got a little storage down there. That's about it. And that's it for the second row. Now let's head over to the third row and see what that's like. Normally I'd start talking about the third row from the third row itself, but the Carens has a very cool feature that I want to show you, and that's the one-touch tumble seat. So you press this button here, and the seat tumbles forward on its own and opens up this really wide aperture for you to get into the third row fairly comfortably into. Now when you get into the third row, space is actually not too bad over here. So I've adjusted this second row to a position that's comfortable for me. It's not the rearmost position, but it leaves just about enough room between my knees and the air purifier in the middle row. In that position, I actually have a little bit of knee room over here, which is quite impressive. Headroom as well, not too bad, and I can actually sit in here for a fair amount of time. It's not something that's going to restrict adults to very short journeys. You can sit here comfortably. You've got air vents over here as well, which are nice, but I've got the same complaint that I have about the front. They feel a little flimsy. You've got a cup holder over here and a slot to put your phone, and you've got a USB Type-C charger port over here. So all of that makes it very convenient in the back seat. You can spend time here, and it's not something that you're going to restrict only your kids to. Now, before we get to the driving, I also want to talk to you about the boot space. Even with all three rows up, there's a fair amount of boot space. I can actually fit a proper bag in here. Check this out. This is a cabin bag, fits here comfortably. I can also fit more suitcases. There's a reasonable amount of space left over, but you can obviously increase the amount of boot space you have. You can get this down. The third row folds completely flat, so you can fit a lot more luggage in here. Now this is the 6-seater variant, so obviously the captain seats won't fold flat, but if you do get the 7-seater variant, the bench will fold again completely flat, and you get a massive bed over here to put as much of his stuff you want. Right, so the Kia Carens, what do I think of it? Well, let's start with the engines. There are 3 engines on offer in the Carens. You've got the 1.4 turbo-petrol, you've got the 1.5 diesel, and you've got a 1.5 nat-asp engine. These drivetrains are bang identical to what you get in the Seltos, peak outputs included. Now compare that to the Alcazar, which got the same diesel engine as the Creta, but instead of the petrols, it threw out the 1.5 and the 1.4 and instead got the 2-litre naturally aspirated petrol. I'll be honest with you, I actually prefer the turbo petrol. I think it's more suited to this sort of a car. And the main reason for that is just the sheer performance and the responsiveness of it. This feels nice and punchy. It gets up to pace quickly. It's got good amounts of refinement. You don't hear too much of it in the cabin. And driving it around, it feels well suited to the sort of car that the Carens is. This 1.4 turbo petrol makes good outputs. It makes 138 bhp, 242 Nm of torque, and those outputs can get the Carens to move in a manner that keeps you engaged and happy on the road, you know. For this sort of a car, you're never going to be doing any enthusiastic driving, but what you need to do is have enough performance to make overtakes on the highway, have enough performance to make quick overtakes on narrower roads, maybe on hills. And the 1.4 turbo petrol gives you that. The Carens is a big car, it's a large car, it's obviously heavier than the Seltos. You're going to be carrying a lot more people in the Carens than in the Seltos as well. More people, more luggage, and to that end, does the 1.4 turbo petrol suffice? I think it suffices, and I think that's the key word, that it suffices. It feels a little more sluggish here than in the Seltos, but that aside, it does the job, you know, and it does the job well. Refinement is another real highlight of this engine. When you're poodling around town, you don't hear it inside the cabin. In fact, NVH in the Carens is good in general, so even road noise is well contained, wind noise is well contained. You don't have too much of the outside coming into the cabin, and that's a nice, pleasant experience over here. In terms of the transmissions for the turbo petrol, what I'm driving here is the DCT. Nice, snappy, quick, gets you into the gear you want very easily. You're never searching around for a gear, you're never fumbling with the paddles or pushing it into manual. In fact, I didn't feel the need to put it into manual mode at all. Whenever you want to downshift, you just step on the throttle and it's there. If you want to be efficient with the engine, just stay with a light foot on the throttle and it'll move up to a higher gear and keep you cruising comfortably. The gearbox is intelligent, it knows what you want, and that makes it a lot more enjoyable to drive. You do get a manual, and sure, that'll be a little more enthusiastic. Also a lot more work if you're going to be driving this a lot in the city. So when you're figuring out which Carens to buy, just try to think about what your use case for the Carens is. Is it going to be a lot of urban driving? Then maybe this is better, you know, because it's just a lot more convenient. If there's a lot of highway driving, maybe you can do with the manual, probably get some better fuel efficiency figures as well. So this button here operates the drive modes. You know, you can put it into eco mode, but honestly eco mode is pretty dead. It doesn't have any sort of performance. It's prioritizing fuel economy over everything else, and it's not a mode that you would enjoy driving unless you really needed to like save money. I don't see why you would drive it in eco mode. You put it into normal mode, and this is the mode that you want to drive the Carens in most of the time, because it's just more effortless in this mode. It's a lot more enjoyable to drive, and it feels like it has the performance that you need, you know. But it does also have sport mode, and you put it into sport mode and everything tightens up. So your gearbox gets more responsive, the throttle feels a lot more responsive, your steering also gets heavier, and sport mode, I mean, it's not going to change the handling in any way, so it's not going to make this any more of an enthusiast car. But what it does give you is more performance on the highway. So when you do want to make those overtakes, if you're on the highway and at high speeds and you want to make faster overtakes, sport mode will allow you to do that. It'll keep the drivetrain responsive to a degree that allows you to get the most out of the car. The other engine that I have driven off the Carens is the diesel. And the diesel, well, it doesn't feel as punchy as the turbo petrol. It doesn't feel as sharp, as responsive. It's a little more dull, you know, and that's because its outputs are lower. But honestly, it feels more than adequate. So if you're looking for something a lot more efficient, if you don't care so much for the responsiveness of the engine, but would rather just a smooth, comfortable drive with good efficiency, something that's stress-free, then the diesel is the one for you. The gearbox there is a 6-speed automatic, not a DCT. So once again, that dulls the sheen and dulls the responsiveness of the drivetrain just a little bit. Doesn't feel as sharp as something like the DCT. But like I said, if you want something that's easy to drive, effortless, doesn't stress you out, the diesel is a no-brainer. As for the 1.5 naturally aspirated petrol, that it's not something I've driven yet, so I can't really tell you about it. Once we do drive it, stay tuned. We'll do a video and a story about that, and you can catch it on the Evo India channel and the website. Now, coming to the real highlights of the Carens. What is it? I think ride quality. This thing is really sorted when it comes to ride on our roads. Couple of reasons for that. One, I think the smaller wheels with higher profile tires really do make a difference. This does have 16s even on the top end trim, so you're never gonna get that nice stance on the outside, but honestly when you're inside the car you will appreciate that ride quality so much that you wouldn't want that stance anymore. The second reason I think is because it's such a long car. Remember, this is 20 millimeters longer than the Alcazar even, and with that long wheelbase it feels really sorted on our roads. It really deals with bumps, undulations very well, and it's all sorts of roads, you know. So if you've got smaller granular bumps, rocks, pits in the road, it irons it out very nicely, smoothens out the road very well. It's set up for comfort, and you can feel that it really soaks up everything that comes in its way very comfortably. And the best part is that it doesn't do that at the expense of primary ride. So when you're driving on a highway and you've got these long wavy undulations and the car's, you know, getting kicked up and down a little bit, it doesn't bounce around. It's not out of control. It's tied down, it's sorted, it can do highway speeds very comfortably without getting unsettled. And I think that is its biggest strength, the fact that it combines low speed ride along with high speed ride very well, giving you a driving experience that is comfortable. And that is the Carens' biggest strength. It is really comfortable. The flip side of that comfort is the handling. Now that was always going to take a hit in a car of this manner. You know, it's long, it's tall, it's big, it's not going to be the best handler around. And that was obvious. And when you realize how Kia has set this up for comfort, that becomes even more obvious. So if you try to take a corner in the Carens enthusiastically, it will roll. Yeah, you'll feel a lot of roll. The steering, it doesn't feel very direct. It doesn't have too much by way of feel. You can place the car perfectly fine. You know, that's not a problem. It's direct in the sense that it allows you to place the car well. But beyond that, it doesn't give you the confidence to push the car hard. And honestly, the Carens is not a car that you want to be pushing hard, because if you start pushing it, even in a straight line, if you start driving like a lunatic, the people in the back are not going to be very comfortable. And this is a car that's all about the people in the back. So you want to be prioritizing their comfort, driving in a manner that keeps them comfortable, and not being selfish and trying to experience the thrill of driving in a Carens. When it comes to the brakes actually have good stopping power. There's no complaints when it comes to the actual stopping power, but I do feel like the feel of them, the feel at the pedal is a little bit spongy, a little bit soft, and I would have liked a little more sharp feel from the pedal. But like I said, this doesn't affect braking performance per se. The performance from the brakes is there. It's just the feel from the pedal that feels a little squidgy. Kia is offering 6 airbags as standard on all variants, and that's really nice, because it means it's not just the occupants up front that are protected, but even the guys at the back have some degree of protection from side impacts. In addition to that, you've got the whole suite of electronic aids, which are always helpful. But apart from that, well, the Kia Carens has not been crashed yet, and how it performs in a G and cab crash, that we're just going to have to wait and see. There's no saying yet. Overall, I think this Carens is a really nice car. You know, there's a lot going on with these 7-seaters. There's so much that these car makers have to package into them. You've got second row comfort, third row comfort. In addition to that, you've got to have a driving experience that is good, is engaging, that has enough performance to deal with our roads, enough performance to deal with our highways, something that rides well, something that isn't an absolute boat to handle. And doing all of those things, combining all of them together into one single package is not easy. But I'll tell you what, the Carens is a really competent package. It does a lot of things right. I think the comfort in the second row, the comfort in the third row, they're highlights. I think the ride quality is a definite highlight, and those two things combined are definitely one of the biggest reasons to look at the Carens, just how comfortable it is. So how do I sum up the Kia Carens? The Kia Carens is a really practical, sorted family car. You know, if you have a family of 6 or 7 people, if you need to cram people into a car, but you want to do it comfortably, you want to do it without compromises, you want to do it in something that's really easy to live with, the Kia Carens checks all those boxes. It's not the most enthusiastic car in the world, it won't light your heart on fire, but it does the everyday stuff very, very competently. What do I think the Carens is going to be priced at? I think it's going to be priced a lot more aggressively than the Alcazar. Couple of reasons for that. Firstly, it doesn't get that 2-litre petrol engine. Instead, it gets the 1.5-litre nat-as petrol engine. So the base prices will be a lot more aggressive. In addition to that, it doesn't get as much equipment as the Alcazar. It's very well loaded, but it doesn't have that over-the-top stuff that the Alcazar does. So in that sense, the Carens is going to be a lot more aggressively priced and a lot more value for money. The final prices, we're just going to have to wait and watch at what Kia prices them at. But until then, if you have any questions, drop them down in the comments below and we'll definitely get back to you. And thank you for watching. I'm Atish Mishra, signing off.